Hi, John. What are we talking about today on rocket
So,
relationships?
so we're going to be continuing our conversation on emotion regulation. Last time we focused on things externally that can regulate us. Today we're going to focus on things that internally that we can do that can regulate our emotions. So, with for those of you who weren't here last time, just a little catch up on external regulation. External regulation is where we use um, things that are not necessarily connected with our body to regulate our body. One of the reasons why we want to have those kind of skills is um, sometimes it can be really, really difficult or really scary to get into your body and regulate, especially if you've suffered a trauma, abuse, things like that, that make it difficult for you to notice your body or don't feel safe in you noticing your body. So if you were not here last week and you need those skills, go back and see the recording on the website. We gave three or four skills there for external regulation. So today we're going to focus on getting into your body and regulating. And this again is going to be, I'm going to ask you to try some of this stuff out while we're talking. If you hit a roadblock, if you hit something that's extreme discomfort, feel free to pause, feel free to mute, feel free to do whatever you need to do in order to regulate. This is not, as Tammy mentions in the beginning of each webinar, this is not therapy, so this is not designed to take you into deep stuff. This is just an introduction to some skills that you might want to use that can help you to keep your emotions a little more at an even keel and a little more in a manageable range for you. So let's get started. For me, I would say the place to begin with regulating your emotions with a body awareness is all about your breathing. Take a minute right now and just notice your breath in and out. Don't try to change it. Just notice. Notice if you're a mouth breather, a nose breather. Do you breathe shallowly into the top of your chest? Does it get down into your diaphragm? One way of really checking our breathing rate is to do some belly breaths. So, ask everybody to get real comfortable where you're sitting. If you want to play at home, go ahead and follow along. I want you to take 3 deep breaths, and you're going to use your diaphragm to draw the air in. So you're going to push your belly out when you're breathing in. The big breath in, push your belly out. Breathe out. Notice what happens when you let the bottom of your lungs fill up. So really focus on filling up all of your lungs. Another big breath in. Keep your shoulders down when you're breathing. This actually constricts, so keep them down. One more big breath in. Now just take a moment and notice the difference between how you were breathing naturally without awareness and how it felt to get some deep breaths in. If you want to put that in the chat feature so we can share some of those responses, what did you notice the difference? These natural body rhythms that happen all the time without our awareness, I think, are pretty key to being able to regulate our emotion, being able to almost jump in the driver's seat. Somebody said their regular breathing was shallow and narrow, like only front to back, then deep breath included side to side. So there's a lot more expansion in the body you could notice there. As I was saying, these natural rhythms, we take for granted how big of an effect they have on our bodies. Most of the time, when I'm working with a client in the room and I see that their anxiety starts to rise, the first thing I'll do is have them pay attention to their breath. And I don't know that the anxiety starts first or the breath changes or whatever, but when we start changing the breath, the level of anxiety or the experience with anxiety changes. So breathing is a way for you to open up some emotional space within you, and it's something that you can get really intentional about. And it's not even something, if you'll notice, if you experienced a shift in the kinds of breathing, it's not something that even takes a long time to change. You can slow your heart rate significantly just by slowing your breath and deepening your breath. And that's going to have an impact on how anxious you feel or how activated you feel. A couple years ago, I was running a group, and this man who was normally a very connected, friendly part of the group, he became really combative. He became really suspicious. And we were all really surprised that this had happened. And, we'd asked him about it in group. And of course, because he was defensive and suspicious, he met that with a lot of argument, a lot more defensiveness. A couple weeks later, he'd mentioned in group that he'd been taking a diet supplement and that he stopped taking it because it made him feel awful. And we asked what the supplement was. And there was one of the members of the group was a doctor. And he said, that supplement is known to cause heart problems.
Wow.
And somebody else in the group said, no wonder why you have been the way you've been the last few weeks. Your body's automatically elevated, and we were the ones that you put in the crosshairs for that. So it wasn't that he even had problems with the group. His body was just activated. Focusing on breath, I think Tammy last time had mentioned, did you call it 4-square breathing?
4-7-8 breathing.
That's right, 4-7-8 breathing.
4-7-8 breathing pattern, and there's a little video online about it, but it works slick. I don't know why, because I'm sure not a mindfulness naturally person. So
yeah, we know that the brain will follow the body and the body will follow the brain. So this is a way to get your body to start nudging your brain into something that's a little more calm, a little more in your window. Heart rate is another way to do that. A lot of the folks that I work with, either spouses or addicts, a lot of them deal with what we call dissociation, or which is like a level of numbing. So instead of your nervous system being too high, it's too low. So there's some ways that you can deal with that too. Getting movement or increasing your heart rate is a way that you can cope when you're starting to disconnect, when you're starting to zone out, when you're starting to dissociate. Another way, if you want to play at home, if you have a clear patch of skin on your arm, I want you to just gently rub it back and forth, just with 2 fingers like this. And just gently rub until you feel like you can really feel it. And if you want to put in the chat panel what you notice as you just gently rub back and forth again. This is a way that you can engage your nervous system. When we start to numb, when we start to dissociate, I put this graphic up here last time, that window of tolerance. So the anxiety stuff here is above our window of tolerance, above our normal functioning. The dissociative stuff is below. So just engaging your senses. I also will have clients do this, rubbing their fingertips together when they're starting to float out of the room a little bit. It's a way to get grounded back in your body, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing right here, right now. And this is also stuff that you can do. This is also something that you can do on the go, and people aren't necessarily going to notice. There's times when I feel myself kind of floating away. I'll just tap fingertips in my lap. Kind of brings me back in my body, grounds me a little bit more. Somebody had just asked, they missed the first few minutes, what's the topic? We're talking about emotion regulation using your body. So those kind of like creating sensations, gentle sensations, those are ways that you can get back into your body if you feel yourself leaving a little bit. Stretching is another way that we can use our body. So I want everybody to, again, if you want to play at home, just pause right now and just notice kind of where your attention is at. Notice where your thought process is. Maybe you're paying attention to what I'm saying and you're tracking this. Maybe your mind is going somewhere else. So just notice that. And then notice the posture that you've got in your chair and just expand a little bit, maybe sit up a little more straight. You can even try gently gazing up at the ceiling. Just fill your space a little more, get a little more comfortable. Maybe stretch just a tiny bit. If you've got some tension across your chest and shoulders, just stretch your arms out. If you want to put in the chat, what do you notice when you paid attention to your posture, when you straightened up a little bit, when you gazed upwards? What did you notice about your thought process? If you want to share, go ahead and put that in the chat panel. Stretching is one of those, again, easy things. Our emotions manifest in our body and how we carry it. I'll even notice when I'm around somebody who's intimidating to me, I take the beta response. I get small, I get tense. just being able to stretch, being able to stretch out, fill my space, that can do a lot in changing the emotional dynamic. Tension in our muscles indicates threat. And so when we become aware of releasing that that tension, we can do, I would say, more of a accurate perception of threat rather than the carried perception of threat. Somebody said, like with breathing, it made me focus on that activity rather than the stuff going on in my head. And sometimes that's really important breathing room. The last thing that we're going to do today is addressing directly some of the thoughts in our head that contribute to our emotions. But oftentimes we need a little bit of a physical nudge to break the lock on, break the tunnel vision. Somebody else said, I became very aware of my body and my muscles, felt like they wanted to have more oxygen. That's exactly, I think, what this kind of self-soothing and this emotion regulation is designed to do. It's designed to get us in touch with what our body is actually needing and actually wanting, which is what emotion regulation is all about. It's not always about going to calm. It's about addressing the needs on the table. So things we can do that draw awareness to our body help us become more accurate in addressing our emotional needs. So the last thing that we'll talk about here is emotion regulation, addressing our thoughts, addressing our beliefs. So when we get to an emotional response, one theory of emotion says that we never reach an emotional response without a thought process behind it. So for example, hopefully this isn't going to be too traumatizing to everyone at home. I want everyone at home to imagine a clown. Get a picture of a clown in your head. Just the first image that comes up. And now notice how you feel in your body. Did anybody get a smile on their face and feel happy? Somebody said clowns scare me right off the bat. That's why I picked clowns. So clowns are not meant to be scary, terrifying things, but we have some images, some stories about clowns in our culture that associate it with a lot of fear and scary, scary stuff, right? So what we believe about what's going on around us and inside of us has a lot to do with how we feel in the end. Somebody else said, same here, clowns are freaky. If we get into why we believe that clowns are freaky, if we get into that thought process, we may notice that we may recall a very specific instance, like maybe you've read that book, It, or seen that movie, It. And that's the only image of clowns that come up. Maybe as a child you had a birthday party and a clown attended and it was a great party and you have nothing but fond memories there, and no other images can take the place of that one. So what we believe about what's going on inside of us has a lot to do with how we feel in the end. So this approach to regulating emotions is called the ABC model. A stands for activating event. So that's noticing what happened that kind of got the ball rolling. I'm going to jump to C. C is for the consequence or the outcome of the B. So B in the middle is for belief. What's our belief around this? So if I could get somebody, if I could get a volunteer, I'll take just the first person who comes up in the chat. If you could maybe put in here an event this week, a consequence, an uncomfortable feeling that you had this week, uncomfortable situation, just the essence of that. So maybe it was an interaction at work and you felt small. Maybe it was an interaction with a significant other and you felt angry. Someone could put something in their real life, just so we have a real life example to deal with here. Okay, so somebody said they're trying to interact with their parents in a new way. How did you feel at the end of trying to interact with your parents in a new way? If you could just put that in the chat really quickly. I would say the trying to interact with parents in a new way was the A, the activating event. They said, I felt really, really sad at the end of that interaction, okay? So if we back up a step and we look at the belief associated there, somebody said remorse for the years I've been angry with them. Great. So this is more detail on that consequence. I feel sad that I've been angry with my parents for so long. What does it mean about you that you've been angry with your parents so long? If you could just put that in the chat. What does it mean about you? What does it mean about your relationship that you've been angry for so long? This will help us understand why sadness was the response. Or participant could just put that in the chat feature there. Or for others of you, if you want to take a guess, if you felt sad at being angry for somebody so long, what do you think that meant about you that you were angry at them for so long, or angry at somebody for so long?
There's an answer now.
Let's see. I'm not seeing it. Oh, here we go.
Go ahead.
I've acted like a brat, and some of the ways they've tried to help me, I've been spoken badly about them over the years, and I could have been me acting out. That I couldn't let go of the situation as repeated events. Notice the underlying judgment in those. I was acting like a brat. I've been a victim all my life. I couldn't let go. Our thoughts are automatically judgment laden. And most of the time we gauge what goes on inside of us and what goes on around us is either good or bad. It's an automatic thing. I would say for the purposes of regulating our emotions, deciding whether something's good or bad it's not the point. It's not helpful. Being able to accurately identify what's going on. So I'm angry right now, or I don't want to listen to you right now. Being able to accurately identify that can change the feeling. So if we have a relationship like our participant here had interactions with their parents over years where they felt like a brat. Now when they spend time around their parents, they feel sad. They're really looking at, I behaved poorly and I did a bad thing and I've lost time. What if we change that belief a little bit? I wonder if this person could respond to this. I'm gonna insert a belief out there, and you tell me how your body feels with this belief. So what if you were to believe I was behaving the best way that I knew how during that time? What changes in the consequence? What changes the feeling there? If you believed I was behaving the best way that I knew how. Somebody said tears came up with that. Sadness sometimes comes with tears. Sadness sometimes is just a deep feeling of sorrow. Somebody said compassion. The same person said compassion. That's what we're looking for. So this ABC thing is all about, can I move my belief to something that's more rational, more functional for me? What good does it really do to judge ourselves harshly? What good does it really do to put everything in the good or bad category? Oftentimes, not a lot of good. But when we can move to something that's more flexible, maybe more realistic about ourselves, we can experience something that's actually helpful for us. When I have compassion for myself when I'm around my parents, maybe I can interact with them in a more authentic way. Maybe I can actually extend compassion to them. Maybe that starts to be the new norm in our relationship, is that we are compassionate people when we get together. So the last piece of regulating our emotions, I'll say, is really looking at those beliefs, looking at that internal thought system and seeing if you don't like what you're feeling in the end, see if your beliefs are contributing to that, and can you make a conscious decision to change your beliefs so that you can feel something different, so you can feel something more useful. So that wraps up the education portion of today. Are there any questions?